All right, so I'm Devin Johnson, sports journalist. I'm here with the legend, Mr. Mike Detiller of WWL. How you doing today, Mr.
I'm doing
Mike?
great, Dev. Great to be with you.
It's great to be with you as well. So, Mr. Detiller, I just left a very intriguing conference led by NFL Next Gen Stats and Greg Olson, basically talking about the safety of the league and how we can use technology to further that safety. You being someone who's been around the league for a long time, do you feel overall the game is getting safer?
Yeah, there's no question about it. And, at one time it was like the Wild Wild West. They were going headhunting at you. And so it's become a much safer league. A lot of people say, I don't like the way it is today, and that's some ticky-tack calls. Okay, I sort of agree with some of that. But it's a much safer league. You want your superstars playing, not watching. And so I'm all for that if you can keep your top players in the game. Now, the seasons are longer now. Because, as a kid growing up, it was 12 games. Then it became 14 games. Then it's 16 games. Then 17 games. And unless something happens to me, over the next year, I think it'll be 18 games eventually. So the safety part's going to have more and more emphasis on it. It also puts a lot more emphasis when you are trying to piece together a team from January through August.
That's true.
On what you do from a depth standpoint.
Right.
Because you don't want no Mount Everest fall off. And we saw that this year even with the Saints. Okay, they lose a starter. The next guy, he's not even close. All this next man up, you and I talked about this. Next man up, that's horse food. That's great to feed the fans and the media, and they want to buy that. That's great. I know better. If he was that good, he'd be playing. He wouldn't be watching. Okay, next man up. Okay, that's great for high school.
Right.
Because that it equates more to that. But there is a gap there, and I think the big thing now with safety is knowing the longer seasons and you're going to miss time. It puts more of an emphasis on depth. And the other part now, because of the salary cap, your depth's going to come by young guys, developmental players, and bringing them into the league and developing them much quicker than you did maybe even 5 years ago.
And you just spoke about development. We're in an interesting time now, Mr. Detiller, where I feel like we're at a crossroads between if a guy has it or developing it. And we've seen that with guys like Josh Allen. He comes from Wyoming. He's completing under 55% of his passes, gets into the league. He's a perennial MVP candidate. So it's like, where is that balance between developing guys and, some guys maybe just not maybe being built for it like we perceive to be?
Yeah, again, that's the tricky part. You and I were talking about it before we did this interview. This was many years ago because he's passed away, but Bill Walsh, he came down here to accept a People's Award. And so we were talking about the draft, and he was asking, he said, I haven't taken a good look at it. This year he was retired. We were talking about certain things, and he was like, what the draft is, it's nothing more than an educated guess.
Educated guess.
And he said, you can look at all the information we have. It's really about fit and how quickly can you get him to play on your football team. And he brought up a point, Wesley Walls, who's an Ole Miss tight end. They picked him very early in the draft one year. It didn't work out for him in San Francisco. He comes to the Saints. Wesley Walls was a really good tight end. He goes to Carolina, and he was a really good tight end. So it was not the right fit for him in San Francisco, but yet it worked in New Orleans and it worked with the Panthers. It's a strange game of picking, and how much patience do you have? And I think after a while you can see if that guy can play or not. One thing with Josh Allen, on that Wyoming team, how many guys in the NFL from that Wyoming team is playing now?
None.
So he also had a high amount of drops. And so first time I saw him at Manning camp, and he wear this bright orange Wyoming shirt with Wyoming across it. He looked like a lumberjack. Looked like he had come down to cut some pine trees on the bayou. That's what it looked like to me. You could see he was immensely gifted, but the footwork, the mechanics needed to be worked on. I could say the same thing about Jalen Hurts. Visually in my mind, I'm on the field. Archie Manning and I were on a golf course, and we watching Peyton Manning work with Jalen Hurts. And he's about, Jalen, set your feet, throw it on balance, over the top. It's almost like I'm watching him do it. And Jordan Love the exact same way. And he was like, don't be an arm thrower, be a mechanical thrower.
Right.
You're going to use your arm at times, but okay, be a mechanics guy. And you saw those guys get better with their mechanics. But you had to be patient. You really had to be patient with Jordan because of the fact he wasn't playing.
Right.
He was watching, you know, and he was watching Aaron Rodgers. So,
and Josh Allen actually spoke about that. He spoke about how he literally would finish games at his rookie season with his arm being sore like a pitcher because every single throw he was making was all upper body. He said he truly had to study Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers, I believe, has probably the best quarterback release of all time. It's just completely seamless, it's effortless. But he actually explained the intricacy within that, and he said that he gets ground force from his legs. So he said, if I could get my knee to
it's all about your lower body.
It's all about the lower body.
It's funny, Patrick Mahomes. Okay, I grew up in an era. He's before your time a little bit, but Patrick Mahomes is the Pete Maravich of pro football.
Okay. Wow.
Okay, Pete would throw a pass between his legs, behind his back. He'd look at you and pat the ball away. And okay, he's bouncing it to another guy. Watch Patrick Mahomes. If you were a quarterback coach, you don't teach him how to throw the football halfway, three-quarters, sidearm, or he pitches it like a basketball. I mean, you're not teaching that to some kid.
Right.
This is how you do it. No, that's all instinct with Mahomes. But so much of his short, intermediate, and longer throws, watch how balanced he is. Those feet set, that body balance, and it's over the top. Now, there's some stuff when he gets pressure, that's improv. Okay, I can't teach you how to do that. Okay, not above, kind of gave him that talent to do the same thing with Pete, with a basketball. Gave him that ability, practiced it, but still gave him that ability to do it. And it's a really tough call. I think after a period of time, if you don't see that progression in a quarterback, then you got to move on. But I think sometimes being the right place, right team. Look at Baker Mayfield. What happened to him? Okay, he bounced around with Cleveland. Then he goes to Carolina. Then he was with the Rams for a little while. I think that really helped him working with McVay. And then look this year. In the last 2 years, what's happened in Tampa?
You could argue he's been the best quarterback maybe in the division.
Well, yeah, I would say you're right on that. And then Sam Darnold. You watched his journeys.
Yeah.
Sort of the same way, Jets, Carolina. He didn't look like what he looked at with the Vikings. He was terrific. And so, right coach, right scheme, right kind of into, everything around it. It worked. Jared Goff, nobody would have thought he'd have had this type of success he's had with the Detroit Lions. And so
that's true.
It's not like watching Matt Stafford on a bad team. Okay, you knew Matt Stafford could play, but man, you were like, good gracious, he's going to get killed behind that offensive line. Then what Dan Campbell did, along with Brad Holmes, they built that offensive line, got good people protected, and they got a running game. That's the quarterback's best friend.
It is.
Best friend is to have a running game.
It is.
That you can follow.
And building off of that, I really do want to accentuate how important the running game is. When you look at just this playoffs, the teams who are running the ball, who don't turn the ball over, they're winning. They win the most games. But additionally, the run in today's NFL opens up the pass the most. If you want to use these rinky-dink RPOs, you want to get the ball down the field to these explosive wide receivers, you have to force defenses to not play too high. So I think that, forcing more men into the box, the Eagles definitely have capitalized that and realized, that that's actually a key in order to broaden the pass game.
Yeah, no, we have Mark Schlereth on all the time, former offensive lineman. And Mark would say, Coach Shanahan, when he was in Washington, would say, man, then you insulting me if you're playing too high safety. You know what? I'm going to ram it down your throat. To the point where you're going to have to bring that safety up to play the run. And then once that safety's up, I got man coverage. Now I got it. The other big difference I see is 40 years from me doing it is the athleticism of the tight end position.
Wow.
You see now, and I see it at the camps, this 6'3", 6'4" guy, And I said, what position you play on defense? Coach, I don't play defense. I'm a flex tight end or wide receiver. What? I ain't never played defense. And you see all these tight ends. We saw it 2 years ago, maybe the best draft class I've ever seen at tight end. It's going to have a great draft class this year.
Yeah.
With Greg Olsen, his impact. You talk about watching his seminar. And he came out, he was a pass-catching tight end. He learned how to block better, but he really was a receiver playing tight end. And then he became a better inline blocker throughout the years. You see Travis Kelce, impact he's had. We watching Dallas Goedert, Zach Ertz. He's an old pops in his business. He caught 13 passes against the Eagles.
Yeah.
13 passes. And so it is a big part of the NFL. You see these really tall, athletic guys that probably would have played defensive end or outside linebacker years ago, playing tight end today. Man, throwing the ball, I want to catch the ball. I don't want to rush the quarterback. And I can make pretty decent points playing tight end.
And I kind of want to build off of that because I feel like, Mr. Detiller, the tight end position is so important, but maybe financially and from a scheme sense, it's not as valued. Some of the best tight ends in the league currently, we have Travis Kelce, we have young Brock Bowers. These guys are important over the middle. How do you feel like how could you maybe explain the undervaluedness of a good tight end and what that does for your team?
My value of a tight end is this. I can't put a linebacker or a safety on Brock Bowers or Travis Kelce and think he's going to cover. I got to cover him with a nickel corner, if not one of my starting corners. He's that good. And eventually, we've seen that big jump financially in paying wideouts. $30 million. And Jamar's going to break the $30 million mark. I mean, he'll be even more than the $30 million a year. So I think it's undervalued today. If we had this conversation 3 years ago, it wouldn't be undervalued. You're going to get paid. It's really, they look at you as another receiver. And my thing is, if I'm playing the Raiders, there's no way I can put a tight end and a linebacker to cover Bowers. Hey, he's still laughing if you're doing that.
Right.
Okay, same thing with Kelce. He sees a linebacker on him. What? Okay, just throw me the ball. I got it. So it is a much bigger part of the game than it was, say, 5 or 10 years ago. I think that part of the NFL has exploded, and we have gone back to a point where the running game is huge today. And it's all about, we can talk about receivers, running backs, tight ends, corner. You know what? You better win up front. You better have a really good offensive, defensive line. You better win in the trenches. It's old school, but it is. Now, again, you better have the quarterback, too. If you don't have him, you ain't going nowhere. You watch it. You're not playing in no big games.
Right.
You watch it.
Right.
And just look at the quarterbacks, especially in the AFC. Other than Joe, because Joe Burrow, his defense was so bad, and I mean bad, that, what Joe did was unbelievable this year. Because you had to tsunami every team with 40 points or more. So, it's a ever-changing part of pro football, but yet it goes back to the basics. Winning in the trenches, having a quarterback that can make a play in crunch time.
And I'm going to segue a little bit because I think that's important. You said winning in the trenches.
Rod. It's just me getting interviewed. It's just me getting interviewed, Rod. Are we okay?
It's all good.
It's all good.
It's all good. But I didn't lose focus. You were talking about the trenches. The Saints, let's talk about their draft process. I feel as though maybe we should target the trenches. We have our homegrown Will Campbell entering the draft. We have on the D-line, potentially we can get Mason Graham. Do you feel the trenches is maybe an area that we should target early on in the draft?
Now, Mason Graham, you best trade up in round 1 to get him.
He's special.
Yeah, he's not getting out of the top
special.
5 or 6 picks. I mean, that's just the case. And you pick 9, so you'll never get him. Will Campbell's interesting because I'm going to have to do something with his stance.
Okay.
He's got a little bit of a weird stance for a left tackle where he's almost upright, so I got to but you see, that's a technical part. A good offensive line coach can can figure out. And all this parsooie about he's going to play inside, hell no. He's playing left tackle. What he's been playing for 4 years. He went to LSU as an 18-year-old true freshman. He was up against grown men and winning. Now, I got to do something with his technical part, and that you can work on. Will Campbell can play. And man, standing next to Will, he's a grown man at 22 years old. He's a big guy. Maybe he doesn't have the huge wingspan you want, but man, if he grabs you, you're not going anywhere. He catches you, you're not going anywhere. And I think he may be somebody you would have to seriously think of, and certainly to the two edge rushers from Georgia, and Jalen Carter and McKay Williams. I think those two guys are also two players that you got to keep it. I would love to get the interior guy, and it would be Mason. And no question it'd be Graham.
Mason.
But he's going to be gone. And then one of the things in this draft class, out of my top 75, 24 defensive linemen.
Right.
So if you don't get one in round one, I can double back and get one in the second round. I can get me a big run plugger inside. Because Brian Bresee, he was as advertised for me. I saw him in so much at Clemson. Great athlete, can rush the quarterback. He can run the field east and west really well. But what he doesn't do well, he's not a technically strong guy. He gets out of his stance sort of high. And so it's like watching an old Western movie, and that you're that cowboy, he sit up high on that horse. That's what Bresee is. Okay, so I get under his pads and I move him around because I can get under his pads and I can move him. Eventually he'll learn how to play at a lower base, but he gives me a pass rush big time in the middle. So if I get me a big man in the middle and stop the run opposite him, good. But this team needs an edge rusher. And while people say, oh, they need a receiver, they need a tight end, need a running back, need a corner. Yes, I agree. But my thing is, give me the big man. The Greeks settled this years and years and years ago. You got a choice of a really talented big man and a really talented smaller guy. Give me the big guy.
Right.
Give me the big guy all the time.
Right.
And you're not going to have a chance at one of these star quarterbacks. Like it was a year ago, where there was a lot of them this year. The numbers are not there at the quarterback spot. So you're going to have to take a shot probably at a developmental guy somewhere in the middle rounds of the draft.
And to kind of conclude on this whole draft thing, how do you feel, too, Mr. Detiller, about our coaching situation going forward and kind of where we're at in this transitional phase?
Well, all roads point to Kellen Moore. It's an old Bum Phillips line. One time, you never know about a first-year coach because he ain't never done it. He said, I was a first-year coach one time, and I didn't know how good of a coach I was going to be as a head coach. Okay, at one time or another, everybody's a first-time head coach. How he reacts, Kellen Moore is going to be the interesting thing. Personality-wise, hey, not everybody's Watusi. They're not the same personality.
Right.
So with Kellen, he's kind of a quirky guy. And man, I remember him, it was yesterday. He was at Boise State.
Yes.
Throwing that left-handed pass, downfield. He won a ton of games at Boise State. And
I think he set the record for wins for a QB.
Now that's going to be broken because now you're going to have these 6, 7-year guys that's going to break the 5-year record.
Right.
Right. I always think that players are one. You got to have players, and this team lacks a core group of young players under 27 to win big. They lack that today. Second thing is build your really good coaching staff, because that part of developing talent and squeezing every bit of vitamin C out the orange, that's what coaching is all about. I wouldn't be surprised that a number of the guys on this coaching staff also come from the college ranks. In college football today, it's a madhouse.
It is.
And
we're seeing success from some coaches that are transitioning.
Yeah, and so there is some concepts that you can use from the collegiate level and put it into the pro ranks. At one time, but you're a college coach, you can't coach over here. You can't coach in the NFL. Today, it's a different story, and when you got to re-recruit a guy 5 or 6 times on your same team, that's difficult. That takes a toll on a head coach. So I would love to see the staff to give you a better answer, but this is first and foremost, this team has to get better via the draft good young players, because that's how you win in this league. You look at the Lions, it wasn't overnight. It took them a couple of years. Now look what they got. They got a really good football team.
Yeah.
Eagles the same way. A lot of that is through the draft, is what Howard Roseman did. Kansas City, last 3 years. People say, oh, tank for an earlier pick. What? Who's drafted better than the Chiefs the last 3 years? Where they picking? Either 30th, 31,
Always
32.
last, they win.
So my thing about it is, you can have the 6th pick in the draft, and if you don't hit right, you know what, you miss just like the guy picking 31.
That's true.
You got to understand the right fit for your team. I think that's the key to the draft, picking the right player for your football team.
There you go. I'm Devin Johnson. I'm here with Louisiana legend Mike Detiller of WWL. Build in the trenches. That's where you start. Thank you, Mr. Detiller.
Thank you,
It was a
Devin.
pleasure
Appreciate it,
interviewing you. Thank you.
Thank you.